Aye.
All those opposed? All those abstain? We will suspend the order of the agenda. We have two invited guests today, Captain Sharif and Fire Chief Freeman, as a result of the FOI that was we sent in April regarding the voice activation um, voice activation fire alarm system at Weaver. Um, to begin the discussion, I will begin the discussion. Um, Schools have many different types of drills. They have at least three that I know of since I spent 37 years with the kids teaching at Hartford. There's a fire drill, and that I know is practiced on a regular basis, especially in October.
How you doing?
Uh, a fire drill. There's also an intruder drill where a code is given out on a loudspeaker system, and it basically tells the teacher and the students to wherever they are to stay where they are, usually in the classroom, lock the doors so that they are secure. Um, I call that the lockdown drill. I've experienced both of those. However, on a campus, on the educational campus, there was some difficulty in which an intruder pulled the fire alarm, waited for the students to come out of the building, and then randomly shot, I guess, whoever he wanted to shoot, or however that story went. So there was created, based on that situation, a third type of drill that I think is appropriate for schools, and that's an intruder drill um, after the fire alarm system has been activated. And I guess the focus of our FOI is that type of drill practiced in the um, Hartford Public School System. Uh, and the drill would consist of the fire alarm being pulled, um, but authorities realizing that that was a diversion for some possible intruders or those individuals who have no good intentions for those in the school, and the need to have the students not leave the building, but to remain to go into a lockdown mode. But the fire alarm is ringing. The question is, has that type of drill been performed in the Hartford Public School System? And does the Hartford Public Schools, the individual schools, have the capacity to have that type of intruder drill with a fire alarm? That's the question. Fire chief, does everybody
Yeah,
understand the question?
yeah, I believe so, Madam President. Yeah, so this is slightly different than what I thought we were going to be discussing, but nevertheless, still very relevant. Thank you for the opportunity for myself and Deputy Chief Ewan Sharif, our city's fire marshal, to participate. So to answer your question, Madam President, yes, Hartford Public Schools, they have participated in these drills. I know from personal knowledge that that has happened because I've worked side by side with Chief Daryl Roberts, who is the Director of Security for Hartford Public Schools. And we had our first drill at the HPS headquarters on Main Street roughly 2 years ago. And it was a active shooter. The scenario that you were describing is active shooter, active threat. And what you
Mm-hmm.
describe is exactly what we practice. And so the idea was for us to start there at HPS Administrative Building on Main Street. And then, of course, the Director of Security and his team, as well as on the direction of Superintendent Torres Rodriguez, that would be spread out amongst all the schools in the city. So to answer your question, absolutely, Hartford Public Schools, they do practice for active shooter, active threat scenarios. They do practice sheltering in place, and they have a system in place for all clear. So one of the examples, as we actually physically walk through the exercise in regards to the alarm being activated and the exact same scenario that you use as far as a fire alarm to bring people out, and then that false sense of security if the shooter, him or herself, were to say, all right, everybody, we have an all clear. I can't go into too many details for security reasons, but Hartford Public Schools has a process in place to where every teacher, every administrator who's going to be protecting children, they know when there's an actual all clear. And again, that's as much as I can divulge for the safety and security of our teachers and our students. But that is the long version of the answer to your question, Madam President. Yes, Hartford Public Schools, they have a plan. Yes, they actually exercise the plan. And I know because I was part of that process.
Thank you. Is by any chance, is Arnold on the line yet?
Yeah, I'm on.
Could you make your comments, please?
Yeah, so Fire Chief, how is that possible with the fire alarm system at Weaver when there is no speaker in the hallways, in the fire alarm system, or in the classrooms? Only two areas they would be able to hear announcements at Weaver would be the auditorium and the cafeteria.
So, Mr. Arnold, I can't tell you how many speakers they have at Weaver or any other school in the city for that matter. I don't have that intimate knowledge. I'm not involved in that process. Once you first brought up your concerns to me about the alarm system, the system period at Weaver, I don't know, maybe 2.5 years ago, I immediately got Deputy Chief Sharif involved. Deputy Chief Sharif engaged the state because first and foremost, naturally, we as the fire chief and the fire marshal, we're going to ensure that that our kids have and our teachers have everything they're supposed to have to keep them safe. So I will defer to Chief Sharif because after he did start looking into the process, I'm fairly certain he got familiar with the system that they have. And also he visited the site. So Chief Sharif, do you have anything to add to that?
The system is compliant. As far as voice evac, it's in 3 locations in the school: the gymnasium, the auditorium, and the cafeteria, which is what's required by code, which is what was installed, which is what was tested, and which is what was accepted. That's about it.
But that was not the design originally on the school, and that's not what was approved by the city for inspection or by you guys for installation.
Understand, but the system was over-designed. Let's just put it that way. The system was over-designed. It was designed to a newer code, which was not in use at the time that this project was done. Weaver was done under the 2005 with the 2009 and the 2012 amendments. All the stuff that was put into the spec documents came in afterwards, which they weren't legal. I mean, yes, if the Board of Ed wanted to accept it and they wanted that, they could have more than had it, if that's what they wanted. They wanted a system that was code compliant, which, like I said, the system is code compliant. It meets the code, it's legal. There's nothing wrong with the system.
But like the chief just said, for the announcements to let the kids know that they have their lockdown procedure, they cannot hear that in the hallways or in the classrooms.
There is a voice evac system, and there's also a speaker system in the school. So there is communication throughout the building. Am I correct?
The communication you're talking about is the PA system, which is not a life safety system because of you're relying on electronics that is not monitored. So it could fail, which it has already at Weaver because I installed it. After the job was done, there was a blown fuse where the whole first level had no PA system and nobody knew about it for about a month.
I was not aware of that, but I will definitely look into that.
And also, Mr. Arnold, you know, if the PA system was inoperable for a day or a week or a month, that is up to the administration at Weaver to test the PA system. I recall, and I'm pretty certain other folks on this call remembers hearing the principal give pleasantries first thing in the morning over the PA every single day. So, you know, if the PA was inoperable, that's a different discussion that needs to be had with the folks at Weaver.
So the PA has many different zones or different areas. It's not a complete building. So if you could hear announcements in some areas and think the PA is fine and not hear it in one classroom, one hallway. There is no PA in the stairwell. And the system, I mean, when I asked the City of Hartford for what was approved to go into Weaver, it was a complete voice evacuation system. And it's the same as what's going in MLK right now. It's the same that was in West Middle. It's the same system that's in Capital Prep. It's the same system in Annie Fisher. And Weaver did not have the same system that was asked to be bid on, that was in the documents to be installed there. And it was never installed to what was in the specs and plans.
So, Mr. Arnold, if I could just address that, because I think it's very important for you and everyone else that is listening, watching, and to understand that the fire marshal, he's not involved in the RFP process. He doesn't know what was sent out for bid, what was received back, what's approved. My fire marshal and the fire department is not involved in that process. They simply test systems. Once they are called to a site because they're trying to get a certificate of occupancy, then the fire marshals go and then they assess the system. But we are not involved at all in any of the processes early on as it pertains to RFPs or review of submittals or anything like that. So I just want to make that clear to everyone.
So when I applied for my permit at Park Street for the fire alarm at the library, I had to produce 2 sets of documents to the license and inspection because they said the fire department has to review one before they give the permit.
That's all after the RFP and everything else, sir. And Chief Sharif, I don't know if you want to add on to that.
Yeah. Once the RFP goes out, we're not a part of that, but what we get are the plans that we review. Now, if you put in something or if something is on the plans that's above and beyond the code, we have no problem with that. I thank you. However, I cannot enforce something that the code doesn't allow us to enforce. So for example, if the RFP stated that there was supposed to be voice evac throughout the entire building, I welcome that, not a problem, okay? Now, if it's not there at the end, I can't make them put it in because it's not required by the code.
But if it's the plan that was approved by the city and you guys to be installed, and then you go there and it's not what was approved,
no.
If you have the power to change that?
Because there's a change. If there's a change order that comes in by the architects or the engineers, if the change order is legal, which it was because it wasn't a required system. So if they ask for a change, you have to grant it to them.
So Chief, just for clarification, I think to make sure we're all on the same page, to Mr. Arnold's point, there was a certain set of plans that were submitted.
Yes.
And then there's a certain system that was installed, but in between there was a change order that maybe Mr. Arnold is unaware of. Is that correct?
We went and we reviewed the change order at Arcadius O&G, and there was never a change order for a different system. And Inez was with us when we reviewed those documents.
Interesting conversation. So, and I thank you, gentlemen, for speaking so clearly about such a complicated subject. But what it boils down to is what was installed or should have been installed as a result of a change order. And a change order is a written document that is voted upon by the school building committee. Is that not right?
Yes.
Okay.
Excuse me, is that correct? A change order.
Change
Um,
order normally comes in by the architects or the engineers, but that comes in through, it goes to the building department and it goes to the fire marshal's office, yes.
is it voted upon by the school building committee, or a change order, or a change order can bypass the school building committee and go to another department or another group, and a change is made, and the school building committee is not made aware of the change?
No, not on the Hartford school system. All the change orders are approved by the school building committee and is voted on. And there's a
Okay.
change order committee. And the paperwork that we had, there was never a change order at Weaver that was submitted for a lesser fire alarm system.
Okay. So, you know, as the chief has said, we have been dealing with this particular issue for a long time. And it seems to me that in my naivete, because I don't know a thing about construction, the matter could have been solved months ago and years ago if a change order had been produced which justified the setup that was installed in Weaver. Just a change order. So what we're looking for, or what we're hoping to find, is a change order. And no one, and you aren't in charge of change orders. The fire chief's not in charge of change orders. The fire marshal's not in charge of change orders. It is Arcadia and the school building committee that should be in charge of change orders. So sometimes I think we're asking the wrong people, um, and um, we're dealing with issues that are outside of their line of responsibility. I'm not sure. I'm beginning to have serious doubts as to whether this is a fire marshal issue or fire chief issue. But it's an issue. And I'm just astonished that, okay, we see a difference. We have identified a difference. This is a change order that justifies the difference. And we would not have been having this conversation for this length of time. Are there any other comments about it?
I mean,
So we're
the only
looking
thing
for
I
a
could
change
say,
order.
by looking through the documents for the alarm system that was installed at Weaver, it was never submitted to the fire chief or the fire department for them to review what was actually installed in Weaver. The only document that was submitted to the fire department and the city of Hartford was the original complete 100% voice evacuation system at Weaver. And then when we did request the change order paperwork at Arcadius ONG, there was no change order.
Let me interject something real quick in how the process really works. If the system is over-designed, and this happens all the time, the process for that would be a modification. Okay? So, for example, at the time of review, we went in under the 2005, like I said, with the 2012 and the 2009 amendments. If you wanted to put something or over-design the system or bring it up to the newest and the latest code, you still have to go for a modification, which would have been addressed at the time of submission. No modification to mod up to the new code was ever initiated. It never came across. You never asked to mod up. Okay? You asked, and at the time, the current year for NFPA 72 that was used for that fire alarm system, in fact, with the 2003 edition, which only required voice evac to be in 3 places in the entire school, which is the only thing you can hold them to. So when we did the review, we reviewed it under what was required to be reviewed, and we held them to the standard that was required. There was nothing in there to say that they have to put voice evac throughout the entire building. And this happens all the time. The contractors, or once it goes out to bid, they're going to look at it and they're going to say, listen, this is going to cost us more money to do this. We're only required to do this. And that's how that decision gets made.
The contractors make the decision?
That's how well, they have a group, they have a review team also. And I met with the review team and they looked at it and we went through the codes and it was like, this is what is required. That's exactly what they did. Even though it was promised to give you the Cadillac of all fire alarm system. Yes, it was been great to have voice evac throughout the entire building, but the code doesn't call for that. Now, from the city standpoint, if I enforce that, the city would be the ones that's paying for that system. We would have to pay for that because it's not legally. They could take us to court and say, listen, this was not in the code. You made us put it in and we're not responsible for paying for it. You know what would end up happening? The city would have to absorb those costs, would have to absorb that expense.
Okay. City absorb. Okay. Any further comment?
Yeah.
My name is Sherry. Can I speak?
Moderator.
Hello. My name is Sherry. Can I speak?
Hold on, Sherry.
Hello.
Hold on. One at a time. Madam President, Arnold has his hand up and Sherry has a request to speak.
Arnold, finish your comment, then we'll go to Sherry.
So, my only thing is, the only time you ask for a modification is if it's lesser than the code, not when it's above the code.
No, if it's above the code, you have to mod up.
And also, the system was paid for already for the Cadillac system in the plans and spec, and it was bidded on the Cadillac system. And there was no modification at West Middle because I installed the complete voice evacuation system at West Middle. I also did the complete voice evacuation system at Capital Prep. And there was never a request for modification, neither one of those 2 projects, because it was above and beyond the code.
And above and beyond, we normally mod up to the newer code. That is the proper way to do it.
But there was never one on West Middle or Capital Prep.
I cannot speak for my predecessor, sir, but I'm telling you, legally, you have to modify, you have to go for a mod. Whether if it's less or if it's above, you still have to mod because it's above and beyond what the current code says. And you have to legally document that so that at any other time afterwards, if you go back and look, that modification will let you know what section of the code that you're looking at to review that building.
I'm finished with my comment.
Okay, Sherry.
Okay, hi. My name is Sherry, and I have I'm concerned with man-hours, material, and vehicles, etc. Anytime that there's a change, and in this particular case, this is a change that affects the safety of students in Hartford Public Schools. And that's the real reason why we're talking about this. If anything should happen to the students in the school system, you got one part of the school that can hear and one part of the school that cannot hear. So what I'm trying to find out from the parties that be is somebody, if it wasn't you, it was somebody that made that change to their job spec in order to get that portion removed. And right now, it's very important that we need to find out who removed that, because no school in the state of Connecticut has that, where if there's an emergency, one part of the school can hear and the other part can't. So we're just trying to resolve and find out who made that request and how and why it was done.
Yeah, I think I understand your, Madam President, through you, if I may.
Yeah.
Ms. Sherry, I think I understand your statement. One thing I would like to make explicitly clear again, the fire department does not make any requests for changes of those magnitude on this subject. So the fire department is not involved in that process.
Okay. But there was a modification, and the modification was granted for whatever reason, and it doesn't meet code. We're not saying it doesn't meet code. What we're asking is basically what Sherry said. Who requested the modification? Where in the process was modification made, and who made the modification? So that part of the school body hears an announcement and the other part doesn't. And again, I come to the same conclusion I came to when Mr. Sharif came in January. It's not your bailiwick. It's not in your job responsibilities. The modification were made prior to your entry into this procedure, and you did what you were responsible for doing. And I think, and others can verify or refute, but we just want to make it clear that based on what we've heard and what we've learned and the documents that we have, it wasn't your responsibility for what exists in Weaver. And we do not want others to scapegoat you. That's the bottom line. We don't want others to scapegoat you and make you responsible for something that's not in your job title. We appreciate you explaining it.
Madam.
We now know it's called a modification, which we didn't know, or a modification, which must be different from a change order. I don't quite understand the difference, but modifications and change orders you aren't responsible for those.
Madam President, you have a request from Angela.
Angela.
Chat, I have noise in my background. I don't want to mess up the record.
You won't.
Stan, can you read the question, please?
Oh, you have oh, I'm sorry. She has her question is, oh, here, wait. Angela, I don't have your question. Where's your question?
In the chat.
Oh, it's in the chat. Hold on a second.
Sorry, they're playing music out here.
All right, here's Angela's question. Oh, gee whiz. Okay, hold on.
I could, Mr. Stan, I can read it if that's okay with
Oh,
you,
okay.
Madam President.
Okay.
Yeah, I have it up. So Ms. Angela's question is, likewise, if a lesser system was installed without a change order, was a lesser price paid for said system, or did the contractor walk away with the difference? Can the HFD personnel speak to the benefits or deficits of the installed systems with respect to safety, design system versus installed system? How does system installed at Weaver compare to other schools in Hartford, new and or remodeled? So the first portion of your question, Ms. Angela, I myself and Chief Sharif, we don't have any information pertaining to that question, specifically going back to the change order, if it's lesser, you know, the money that was paid and so forth, we don't have the answers to that question. The benefits or deficits of the installed systems with respect to safety, going back to when we first started having these discussions, Chief Sharif, after he looked at the system, he wanted to ensure that his professional opinion was correct. So he engaged the state fire marshal, Billy Abbott. And Chief Sharif, do you want to share with the group the feedback and the information that you got back from the state fire marshal?
The state concurred with everything we did. They went through, and like I said, we met with the design team, we met with the builders, we met with the contractors, and we went through the entire system. And like I said, and they provided a letter, which I provided to the African American Alliance. I provided the letter to them, which was the response from the state saying that the system meets the code and the system is compliant and the system will work in the intended manner in which it was intended to work.
All right.
I can verify that. I have a copy of the letter in front of me.
Madam President, you have two requests, one from Phyllis Ari Wilson and also from Councilman Nick LeBron, who wants to address the first question. And
Mr. Stan, if there's just a few more items I'd love to get to answer all of Ms. Angela's first question, if that's okay.
Please proceed.
Okay, and then Phyllis, when you complete your answer, Phyllis, would you go next? Go on.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. And Chief Sharif, can you talk about the designs? And you have a little bit so far, but just to make sure this answers Ms. Angela's question, can you talk about the design system versus the system that was installed?
The design system called for a voice announcement to be made throughout the entire building, which is what is today's current code would ask for. The system that's there asks for a voice announcement to be made in the public assembly areas of the building because it's a mixed-use building. The public assembly areas are going to be your cafeteria, your gymnasium, and your auditorium, which basically, if there's a large gathering, anywhere there's more than 300 people, that's where the voice announcement is required to be made. So in the school, if the system goes off, there will be an alarm throughout the entire building. Anywhere there's large gathering, they will be able to make an announcement through the fire alarm system. However, there is a speaker or a PA system throughout the entire building, which they're able to make announcements throughout the school if necessary. That's the only really difference. And Arnold was right, like he said, technically the system was designed, or what was requested was for a system that was monitored. And basically, if something wrong, like he said, if there's a fuse blown or something, it would report back to the fire alarm system. That's the only thing that's different. There is communication throughout the building. There is notification throughout the building. And like I said, the 3 places that the code requires a voice announcement to be made. That's the only difference in the system, that you cannot hear that voice announcement throughout the entire building. However, you will hear an audible alarm.
And the last of Ms. Angela's question, how does system installed at Weaver compare to other schools in Hartford, new and or remodeled?
It's comparable, I would say, because some other features for safety reasons I'm not going to go into, but there were some other things that were taken into consideration when designing the building, the system at Weaver, up to the location of where it is, up to the guard, where the guard sits. There's monitors. The entire building is under video surveillance. So from the front of the building, from that protected area, they're able to see everywhere in the building, and they're able to monitor the building. Also, the fire alarms, if there's a alarm, it reports back to the main station, which is constantly monitored. So I don't see a problem with the system. Like I said, they didn't get voice evac throughout, but that doesn't mean that the system does not work or the system is going to fail anybody. And it doesn't mean that the children there or the faculty or the staff there is in any more danger than any other building. The system is safe and the system will work. And one suggestion I'd like to make is we can meet at the school and look at the system if that's what you'd like. How many people have actually seen the system?
Okay. Fire Chief, is that your last comment?
Yes, ma'am. Miss Angela had one follow-up for Chief Sharif. She asked, does that include the field house, the pool, and the locker rooms? I think that was when you were speaking about the system, Chief Sharif, as far as the audible.
I'm sorry, Chief. The field house, and that's another part of another phase, but that too will be added or is scheduled to be added to the fire alarm system. It's going to be connected. It's all going to be one system, seamless going through.
And Ms. Angela, you just asked, does the system tie directly? I just have to put that out there. I don't want Ms. Inez to grab me by the collar. Does system tie directly to 911, police and fire without human intervention? If the fire alarm or the alarm goes off, yes, it goes back to dispatch. That is correct, Chief Sharif?
Yes, it does have, there is a master box there which will automatically dial into fire dispatch.
Okay. That is all, Madam President.
Okay, Phyllis. Thank you, Phyllis.
Thank you. Good morning. I
Good morning.
I believe my question was answered. My question was if the old code that's installed wasn't safe for if there was an emergency at this time. And I believe the fire chief and the chief answered that question with the, what is it called, audible alarm system will go off and alert. And it sounds also to me that the chief mentioned that the teachers, there's a procedure in place if there was an emergency where the teachers are aware of the alarm and what to do. So my question was answered. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman.
Hi.
Councilman?
Sure. Yes, through you, Madam President. Thank you for the opportunity to speak here. So the reason I hopped on this call this morning is I was intimately involved with the Weaver Steering Committee from the genesis of it all the way to the completion. So I've been very invested into the processes from, the field house to climate and culture committees and so forth and so on. I think there's some questions that still need to be answered, but I'm not necessarily sure if they need to be answered by fire. Yeah. I think the fire department, right? I think the fire department did what they were supposed to do in terms of code. The question now becomes I think this is a process issue. And oftentimes what I hear from community members in terms of processes, the lack of transparency. And so obviously it's clear here that whatever happened here, the community was not aware in the change of whatever systems it was. And sometimes when you involve community, we can flag things like that because we can better adequately measure cost savings versus life savings, right? Like we're talking about something that's very integral to life safety. It's quite different from like the Route 44 project where they're trying to change the mulch at the last minute to save $20,000. This is something quite different. And so I think what we need to do is, I don't think we should let this go. I do think that we need to move it from fire into the appropriate place, such as the school building committee processes, and dig deeper, in terms of where did that go? Because you're right, the mod system versus change order system. I mean, to me, the regular people in the Hartford community are not going to know the difference, and neither should they. What they need to know is that the systems that are installed are up to the best possible, considering that it's a brand new facility. And so that's why we need to dig deeper. And I think oftentimes that's what happens. You get some kind of modification and stuff like that. And now, mind you, the other thing too that scares me is that now that with the pandemic, with these Zoom meetings, things can be accelerated because you could just schedule a Zoom meeting and not have much involvement and much questions. But that's where we need to dig down deeper, and we need to pause systems to slow down so that we can dig deeper and find out where this change was made and hold the people accountable.
Thank
Question, Sherry.
J-Stan?
Oh, hold on, please. Hold on. Madam President, you have the floor.
No, who is there,
I had a question.
someone,
Sherry is requesting, and Arnold.
wait a minute.
Arnold,
I have to agree with the councilman. In the sense that when we first, in April, we first asked for certain information regarding this particular system at Weaver. And we didn't focus on any department or any group of people. We just asked for certain specific documents from the contractor. Excuse my naivete with the English as it deals to construction, with the contractor. But what we found is that people were instantly some people were instantly pointing the finger at the fire chief and the fire marshal instantly.
Yeah.
And after Fire Marshal Sharif came to the meeting on January 4th of this year, along with the write-up from the state, it was very apparent that something else was going on called covering one's hind part in this matter. I think the councilman is right. The problem is somewhere in the school building committee. It is not with the fire department. It's not with the fire chief. And I don't believe it's with the fire marshal. And that focus needs to stop. That focus needs to stop, which is why I think it was very appropriate for the Alliance to re-invite the fire chief and the fire marshal in to say they have specific lines of responsibility. Those responsibilities do not apparently deal with the question we are asking. Those responsibilities, they don't have the answers to the questions we are asking about Weaver's fire alarm evacuation system. And those people who want to place the blame on these two elected officials, they need to refocus and attempt to find the group, the people who initiated this change, who had the responsibility for initiating this change, and then who initiated the change. And that is not the people they were originally focused on. Any further comment?
You have a comment from Sherry and also from Arnold.
Sherry.
Okay, I have a comment. Anytime there's a building or anything that's being built, there's a job spec, there's work orders, there's work order changes, etc. Right now, we are talking about, okay, safety of, this is a school. Okay, there's regular kids and there's students with special needs. And not everybody in that one particular building is gonna, okay, if you're on one side of the building, you're not gonna understand what that code means. I mean, the students would have to go through a learning curve just to understand what certain things mean. My question is this. Okay, anytime there's a work order change or any type of change or whatever, okay, there's paperwork involved. Okay, there's meetings involved. Was the parents ever informed of that change? And is this the only school set up like this in the city of Hartford or in the state of Connecticut, where one side has the alarm system and one side don't?
Sherry, are you directing that? I think that I think your question. I think
Anybody can answer that question. That's 3 questions. Is geared towards the parents, special need kids. I mean, because you're going to have some special need kids, and you're going to have a situation where the students.
Okay, so your question has been rendered to And so you're waiting for an answer from anyone who chooses to render one, correct?
Yes,
All right, thank you.
yes.
Um, no comment. Um, are
I
there
have a
any,
question in the chat for Councilman LeBron.
Thank you.
um,
Arnold had his hand up, Madam President.
Arnold?
So I want to answer Summer Angela's original question. I followed the trail, the paperwork trail on Weaver. There was never a change order for a lesser system. So the contractor that was awarded the original bid got paid for a voice evacuation system, but did not install a voice evacuation system throughout the school. The other thing I would have to say, the change came, the person we should be looking at is the engineer on record for that project. He's the one that approved the lesser system, and then it was installed by the electrical contractor. This the school building committee never approved a change order for a negative amount where the city saved any money. So the city paid for a complete voice evacuation system. Like Sharif said, they paid for a Cadillac. And I do a lot of fire alarm in the city of Hartford and throughout the state. This is the only school that I've been to in the last 15 years that does not have a complete voice evacuation system in a school or any public building. Like I said, I did Weaver West Middle, I did Capital Prep, I did Annie Fisher, the fire alarm system. I did the fire alarm system at Fox Middle, and this is the only one that does not have a complete voice evacuation system.
Have you been to Berkeley Wish?
Where?
Have you been to Wish?
I have not. I did not do Work a Wish. I did not do Work a Wish.
There's almost 60 schools in the city, man.
Okay.
They're not all up to the latest code.
Well, the ones I mentioned was recent, the most recent.
60 schools in the city. They're not all up to the latest code.
And you did say you're going to let us know which ones were and which one weren't. The last time we met at the African Alliance meeting, and you never came back with that information.
My apologies. I've been a little short-staffed, but I will look into it for you. But I'm telling you, there's almost 60 schools in the city of Hartford, and they all are not up to 2018 code. That's impossible.
Wow.
So, Madam President?
Yes.
This is Chief Freeman. I just have a question directed towards Mr. Arnold, if I may.
Yes.
So, Mr. Arnold, with the utmost respect, you and I, we've had so many pleasant conversations at the Alliance meetings. I'm slightly baffled as to your statement, because you went into great detail with specificity in regards to who was responsible for what, but nevertheless, they're not on this call. So if you had that information, why was that information not shared? Why is it myself and Chief Sharif are answering these questions? Because it seems as if the gentleman or the young lady who was the engineer, and you also said the school committee, school building committee, was involved. I mean, what you said in that roughly 30 seconds is a culmination of all the questions that our citizens and members have had since we've been on the call. So I'm just confused as to, was that information not shared with the group prior to you just stating it 2 minutes ago?
I've said it before.
Okay, so why are they not on a call, or it being posed as if it was something that the fire department did not do, when you just said for yourself who the responsible parties are?
That's my opinion, who the responsible parties are.
Okay. All right. That's
Chief,
all I have, Madam President.
If I could say, if I could say this, Chief, it is clear that you and Fire Marshal Sharif, you're very knowledgeable about your responsibilities. The community does not have that knowledge base. So although I think it might perk you that you're on this call. I think that it has given you the opportunity to clearly state once and for all what you are responsible for and what you are not responsible for. So we will not be contacting you on this issue again, because in order to resolve this concern, we have to go in another direction. And I thank you with abundance. I thank you for with abundance for Fire Master Sharif and you, Fire Chief Freeman, being so clear
Yes.
to what your responsibilities are. That is something that the regular 9 to 5 worker doesn't know, and that in the long run will be a benefit to the community and be a benefit to you. So I appreciate that, and again, I will state for those who want to cover their backsides by putting you in front of the slingshots and the gunfire, as regards this issue, that is out of order.
Madam Chair, can Councilman LeBron
You're in the queue.
address
You're
the
in the queue,
questions in the
Angela.
chat?
Angela, you're in the queue. We haven't forgotten about you.
Okay. It is out of order. And we want that known. We want that known, and we want that chatter to stop. Okay? Jay Stan, what do you have?
We have a question from Angela to everyone through Nick LeBron. It is in the chat room. Do you need me to read that, Nick?
I'll read it for the group. So, because I believe Ms. Harris is at an event, so I read it for her. I think she said, can Councilman LeBron commit to getting the original answer to my question? And so the original question was, in terms of if a lesser system was installed without a change order, was a lesser price paid for said system, or did the contractor walk away with the difference? It sounds like, Ms. Harris, without me having the intimate knowledge of what's going on, I think Mr. Arnold kind of answered that. He said that we paid for a Cadillac system. Again, not knowing what a Cadillac system is. I'm not even sure if that's the name of the system. I think it's an analogy, but we paid for a Cadillac system and did not get it. So there's an issue there, and I agree with you. And so whatever it is, I'm vested and involved. And if we want to, you have my office and you have my attention, and we need to address this matter. And I'm willing to, whatever we need to do, but we need to do some digging. We need to move away some of the leaves on the top to provide more transparency to, number one, I think there's 2 issues here. Number one, this specific issue in terms of this fire alarm system where we have this brand new building, but did not provide the expectations of what the community was involved in. And again, I was intimately involved from before they even, put the shovels in the ground. And so now what we received, that is a problem. And I think Angela followed up with, would prefer an official response which speaks to process autonomy of contractors. Ms. Harris, I don't know about that. I don't think contractors should have the autonomy. My hopes are and wishes are is that it went through some formal processes that would have went through the Hartford School Building Committee. These things are supposed to go through the Hartford School Building Committee. And so in terms of partnership here with the Alliance, I think maybe that is where we need to go. If we want to ask those questions of the Hartford School Building Committee, if we want to bring folks in who know the system designs and processes better, from mods to change orders and those type of things, let's bring them here and let's see where this ball was dropped and then hold people accountable. So that's the first issue. But I think the larger issue is that we can't continue to allow these things to happen.
That's right.
You know, this lack of transparency, I mean, over and over and over again, where people are making calls or making decisions without the community. And so thank you for holding this group together. Thank you for holding all of us accountable. And you have my attention, and whatever you guys need, I'm here.
Okay.
And can I just ask one? This is Sherry. Can I ask
Sherry.
do the council person?
Sherry.
Jay Stan is in control.
Sherry.
Jay Stan, what's next?
The floor is yours, Madam President.
The list.
Sherry.
Pardon me.
You have a comment?
The comment I wanted to say was the gentleman mentioned that there's a list of schools that do not meet code in the city of Hartford, and that he was going to provide that information. I would be happy to just look at that list.
Wait.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any further comments? Any further comments?
Yes. What I said was there's almost 60 schools in the city of Hartford that are not at the 2018. They don't meet the 2018 amendments. That does not mean that they're not legal. They
don't meet code
because they were on the older code. What I'm saying is, in reference to what Arnold said, that he's worked on a ton of buildings in the city, and Weaver is the only one that doesn't have the latest and greatest. And what my point to that was, there's several schools in the city of Hartford that does not have the latest and greatest. That doesn't mean that the system is non-compliant. Yeah. It means it's compliant under an older edition of the code.
An older edition. Thank you.
Okay, Arnold has his hand up, Madam President. Then I think we should move on to the next subject.
I think that Fire Chief and Fire Marshal, is there anything unrelated to this Weaver FOI situation that you would like to share with the Alliance?
Well, thank you, Madam President. I'll try to be as brief as possible. And as we normally do on our Saturday meetings, just like to give you an update on where your fire department is at. So recently, we just had our ISO Class 1 rating. Again, that was up for review by the Insurance Service Office. The last time we were inspected was back in 2015. So we will get the official report here within the next few weeks, but the auditor has already told us that we even exceeded.
Excuse me, excuse me, Fire Chief. Would you please mute? Go on, Fire Chief.
Yes, ma'am. That we exceeded even our score back from 2015. So that's Wes. If you can mute your mic, that'd be great. Appreciate it. So we exceeded our score even back from 2015. So your fire department continues to ensure that they are as efficient and effective as we can possibly be, which means that you are enjoying the lowest insurance premiums for your homes and your businesses that you own in the city of Hartford. COVID-19, please, everybody remember to social distance. We have a beautiful holiday weekend. We're gonna wanna get together with friends and family. But it's so very important to continue to social distance, continue to wear face coverings, and continue to practice proper hygiene by washing our hands as often as possible, as well as using hand sanitizer. We have 4 new apparatus that are heading to the city within the next 1 to 2 months. We're very excited about that. The fire department has not seen 4 new apparatus at one time, literally in decades. We are very behind with our capital improvement plans for the procurement of apparatus as well as the renovations of firehouses. Both have been topics often brought to City Hall by me so that our members can ensure that we have what we need to successfully do our job, and the firefighters have, at the minimum, a decent quality of life while they're at the firehouse. So our average age of our firehouses is 77 years old. The national average of firehouses across the United States is 44 years old. So that just tells you what the challenge is here in the city with our firehouses and their conditions. And then last but not least, before I hand it over to Chief Sharif, as Ms. Angela has indicated on the chat, and you hear me talk about all the time, is renters insurance. We have to continue to share with our friends and our family the importance of renters insurance. We have more renters in the city than homeowners. We have more multifamily homes in the city than single family homes. And it doesn't matter how safe and conscious you are, someone can always have an accident in an apartment next to yours or on a floor different to yours in your multifamily residence. So please ensure that you look into getting renters insurance. Contact your car insurance providers. A lot of times they give you multi-line discounts. I know individuals in the city that pay as little as $6 a month for renters insurance. And if worst case scenario happens, you have a fire at your home, you're going to want to have renters insurance. So Chief Sharif, do you have anything to add?
I concur with everything that you said, Chief. And just remember, this time of the year, check your smoke detectors. Check your smoke detectors. A lot of the new ones right now they're coming out with a 10-year smoke detector. So you're basically good for 10 years. However, if you don't have one of those, make sure you're checking your batteries regularly. My office, we're still going out. We're conducting inspections, life safety inspections. So if you're in need of an inspection for your business or for your home, so multifamily, let us know. We'll come out. You're required to get one annually. So if you haven't had one in a while, let us know and we'll come out and get that done for you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. And Madam President, I'd just like to end by thanking you, Mr. Stan, Ms. Angela, Mr. Arnold, Ms. Sherry, everybody that's on the call. Really appreciate, on behalf of all 355 firefighters, really appreciate everyone. And of course, Councilman LeBron, I can't forget about him. Really appreciate everyone's support. And as Councilman LeBron said, we also appreciate the accountability. As public officials, we can expect to be held accountable. So we sincerely can appreciate that process. And anytime you would like me or any other member of the department to come back while we're in COVID, because out of COVID, you're going to see me on Saturday mornings like you used to. But anytime you need us to come back to answer any questions, provide clarifications, we're here. So thank you. That's my presentation.
Thank you. Thank you very much. We look forward to our future conversations, and stay well. Stay well. May I have a motion to return to the standard agenda, please? Unless there's anything else that someone would like to say.
Arnold has his hand up.
Arnold. Arnold?
Unmute yourself, Arnold.
No, I want to thank you guys for coming out. And for Sharif, I know there's a lot of schools in Hartford. So if you could just look at the school that was renovated in the last 10 years, so you don't have to have additional, schools that wasn't renovated, to look at the fire alarm. And for Mr. LeBron, I would be happy to meet you and go through the documents for the fire alarm system, because I have, pretty good knowledge on the system. And just another brief comment. The only reason I found out that the fire alarm system was not what was bidded on was by accident, me testing a sound system at Weaver, that I realized there was no voice. So I don't know what else these schools are getting built and what else changes without, a savings to the Hartford or and contractors are walking away with money. I mean, I just happened to find the fire alarm system because by accident. And thank you guys. Have a good weekend.
So, Mr. Arnold, I just want to follow up. Definitely, you could email me. We could sit down as early as next week. I would assume that, starting on Tuesday or what have you. But I do have a question for you. Have you had conversations with Councilman Sanchez?
Yes, I have.
Yeah. Okay, good. Because, excuse me, I know that he has been aware of been made aware of the situation and is also interested. So what we can do is maybe all three of us meet and have a conversation, and we'll take it from there.
Sounds great.
Great. And again, thank you for your diligence, right? Like, we need folks such as yourself to see something, to say something. So, I hear you, your presence is felt, and I hear you.
Okay. Thank everyone for participating in our Zoom meeting on this very important issue that Arnold has identified, and we will be talking to everyone possibly about different topics in the future. Okay?
Madam President, I'm going to end the telecast.
Yes. Thank you. May I have a motion to return